And welcome to the debate on France 24. I'm Andrea Sankey in Paris. Tonight, it's the final stretch of the Democratic National Convention, and we'll be debating if the Democrats will get the bounce they're hoping for. In the lead up to the big event, there were questions as to whether key speakers, Senator Hillary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton, would come off as convincing, endorsing the man they once tried to discredit as a viable Democratic presidential nominee. But in the end, the two did seem to throw all their weight behind their party nominee, with the former president drawing parallels between himself in 1992 and Barack Obama.
Together, we prevailed in a hard campaign in which the Republicans said I was too young and too inexperienced to be commander-in-chief. Sound familiar? It didn't work in 1992 because we were on the right side of history. And it will not work in 2008 because Barack Obama is on the right side of history.
So have these days of Democratic unity on display in Denver given the party what it needs to regain Obama's once double-digit poll lead over Republican John McCain? That's one of the questions we'll debate tonight. And joining me here in the studio to my right, Crystal Fleming, sociologist and member of Democrats Abroad France. Joining us via satellite from Washington, Amy Kaufman, senior fellow from the Hudson Institute. Joining us later via satellite from Denver, Colorado, David Mercer, a Democratic strategist from Mercer & Associates. And from San Francisco, California, Astro Teller, CEO of Cerebellum Capital and a young leader for the French-American Foundation. Thanks all so much for joining us tonight. Let me begin with Crystal in the studio then. I mean, just how good have you felt about this convention so far? I've heard some Democrats and Republicans alike say that it took a while for the event to really find its feet, to gain the momentum that it needed. Are you on the same page there?
I mean, I do think there was a bit of a slow start, and there were some criticisms about being on message and having sort of a coherent message for the Democratic Party. I think the last two nights in particular, not that Michelle Obama didn't kick it off great, but the last two nights in particular have been fantastic. And to be quite honest with you, last night was a very emotional night for Democrats, both here in Paris and back in the United States. Just seeing the force with which President Clinton, former President Clinton, supported Barack Obama, seeing Hillary Clinton out there call for the unanimous acclamation of Barack Obama to be the nominee, it was extraordinary. I mean, they really stepped up, and I think they did what they needed to do for the best interests of the party. Okay,
Amy Kaufman, let me ask you, how good has this convention been for the Democratic Party?
Well, I think that the first night was all about emotion. It was all about the Kennedys and what they've meant to the Democratic Party. The second night was about reconciliation and Hillary Clinton telling everyone we've all got to forget the past and move on and be together in the future. And last night was really the beginning of the cheerleading. Last night was the first night where we really started to talk about what this duo is going to do. And I think that you could not have 4 consecutive nights of cheerleading and trashing the Republicans. So I think that tonight is going to be, obviously, the pinnacle night. The question is going to be the bounce, and the question is going to be what John McCain is going to do on Friday to steal that bounce.
Okay. Let me get the opinion then from San Francisco. Astro, go ahead.
You know, I think the convention has been extremely cleanly and efficiently run, and that sets a tone that goes way beyond the convention. I think there's been very positive emotions, concerns about whether the Clinton-Obama split would last past the convention have been put to rest. But I think there have been a lot of subtle things that have also been put in place which are really critical. Like, for example, it's clear that other people in the party are adopting Barack Obama's brand of not being overly negative or nasty. And to see that sort of flow through and to have a consistent message, not just that they want to elect Barack Obama, but they're going to do it his way, I think is what, when we look back a month from now, will look like the biggest aspect of this convention.
Okay. Crystal, let me ask you, if we in the media should still be asking whether or not the Democratic Party is really united?
I mean, I think it's the logical question to ask, given the last months and months of this divisive battle between the two major candidates at the time, Barack Obama and Senator Hillary Clinton. I think it's a question that's going to be put to rest increasingly now that we have more of a coherent message. And I think you're going to see both Clintons kind of out there stumping for Barack Obama. I think in terms of the bounce question, there was already kind of a mini bounce. The latest Zogby poll this week showed that Barack Obama, who was kind of head-to-head with John McCain, he's now up 2 points, 46 to 44%, I believe the numbers are. So we'll see, now that we have an official ticket, we have Joseph Biden, who I think is going to be an attack dog for the Democratic Party. I think it's going to be a very strong next few weeks for the Democratic Party.
Okay. Let's go over then some of the key speakers if we can. We'll narrow it down then to just 4 if we can. Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and the vice presidential nominee, Joseph Biden. Let's start with Michelle Obama. Amy, let me start with you. Republicans liked to claim, at least some in the party did, that she would be bad for the Democrats because she seems to be someone who can be racially polarizing. Do you think she got past that with the first night of the convention and her speech there?
Oh, absolutely. I think a few months ago, people were somewhat afraid of Michelle Obama. I think they saw her as somewhat militant. She has definitely softened over the last few months, both in her dress and her demeanor and her speech. I think people really, truly like her at this point, and I think she's one of the most positive things about her husband's campaign.
Okay, Astro.
I agree. I think her speech was incredibly effective. It's what got the convention really going. She set a tone that she's not going to try to take the stage, but she's absolutely going to be there and be a personality in the race. I think those fears that she couldn't be an effective part of the campaign are gone, at least for the Democrats.
At least for the Democrats. I mean, what are the Republicans out there that still aren't sold on her? What are they going to be saying to the American people about why she shouldn't quite be trusted, perhaps? Go ahead, Astro.
Ironically, I think that the main thing, I think ironically, one of the main things that will be leveled against her is her high level of sort of professionalism, the fact that some people experience her as somewhat sort of cold, militant, as was just said. I think she's going to adopt, if you'll take the analogy, the Jackie O road in this campaign, and I think that it won't turn out that way. But that's what the Republicans will say as long as it will stick.
Okay, go ahead, Amy.
I think that she's trying to take the Jackie O road right now. I think what the Republicans are going to hit her with is that line that she said a few months ago that for the first time in her adult life, she is proud to be an American. I think her patriotism is going to come under question time and time again in every Republican speech you see from now until November.
Go ahead, Crystal.
I'm sorry. I just have to really correct this because it's repeated incorrectly again and again in the media. Michelle Obama never said, this is the first time I'm proud to be an American. She said it was the first time she was really proud of her country. Now, there's a difference there, and I think it's something that millions of Americans identify with. It's also a sentiment that's easily manipulated by the Republicans, so it's not particularly surprising to see them try and milk it for what it's worth. But anyone who knows Michelle Obama's life story, her commitment to making the country a better place in her own work, in her nonprofit work, cannot question her patriotism. So I think that, yes, she sort of moderated her image. I think that was wise and sort of gets her more in line with Barack Obama's message of hope. But the notion that she's a militant, sort of African-American angry woman is ridiculous, but plays into the stereotype that has existed in the United States, and I think is still a sign of racism.
How do you think her performance will hold up against what's to come from Cindy McCain?
Oh, my goodness. I would love to see a debate between the two candidates for First Lady. I mean, Michelle Obama is such a classy, intelligent woman, and I think actually she's a better orator than her husband. So I think she could hold her own.
Okay. Amy, let me get to your thoughts on that, because I remember in the last election, people said the same thing about Teresa Heinz Kerry. She speaks how many languages? She's so articulate. And Laura Bush was kind of the Texas mother that had only really taken care of the children, and that's the way that the Democrats tried to play her off, and it all backfired in the end. So what do you think between Cindy McCain and Michelle Obama coming up?
Well, let me say, I'm not voting for a First Lady. I have tremendous respect for both of these women. I think that Cindy McCain has been rather quiet. People don't know who she is. But you have to remember that this is a woman who runs a multi-million-dollar business. This is not a woman who stays at home and is basically a socialite. This is a woman who really knows business and runs a company and makes decisions every day. She is a smart woman, and I think that because she's been so quiet and her husband has been center stage, that people sort of forget about that. And it will be interesting to see the role that she does play at the convention next week.
Okay, Astro?
Yeah, I think, let's be honest, the way that first ladies have traditionally been viewed and measured is the extent to which they're seen as human and the extent to which they're seen as admirable. And I'm not making any negative comments about Cindy, but I think that Michelle Obama is not going to have a problem in the next 68 days helping the American people to see her as human. She did that in spades 2 nights ago in her speech, and to see her as admirable.
Okay. Let's move on then to Hillary Clinton's speech the other night. I mean, Crystal, I'll start with you. Are her supporters convinced now? Did she sell Obama? Will they vote for him, all 18 million?
Well, I think getting all 18 million is rather ambitious. If we could get the majority, I think we'll be fine, the Democratic Party. The polls are a little all over the place in this. I think there was one that showed that something like 30% of Hillary's former voters said they might vote for McCain. But if you also look at other polls, over 80% of Democrats say they're supporting Barack Obama. I think that, I saw some interviews of her delegates on the convention floor the other night, and most of them were very enthusiastic about Barack Obama, but there were some who said, you know what, this was a painful experience for me. I'm going to vote for Barack Obama, but it's not going to feel good. But I think that if the tables were turned, you'd see a lot of that on the side of Barack Obama supporters. So it's not particularly surprising. But having very strong support from the Clintons right now, I think is going to sort of help everybody get on the boat and see that she's still a part of the team. I think that this convention could not have been a success without the Clintons there. I mean, you saw Democratic analysts sort of wondering, are they going to steal the show? Is this a good idea? It was a great idea, particularly because they pulled it off. And
okay.
they were very supportive.
Amy, where do you think Hillary's voters are going now? Amy, if you can hear me in Washington, I just asked you where you think Hillary Clinton's voters are going now. Unfortunately, it seems we have a technical problem with our line to Washington. So let me put the same question then to Astro Teller joining us in San Francisco. Astro, should there be any doubt that Hillary Clinton's supporters will vote for Barack Obama now that she has fully endorsed this candidate?
I think the bulk of them will in the end. They have a number of issues, agendas, as a group. And one of them, which came out loud and clear over the last month or two, and which I heard in the convention over the last 2.5 days, the Obama campaign say, we hear you and we're going to take care of it, were the women's rights issues. That was hammered quite hard by several people, aside from Hillary Clinton, to say, this is important to us, and we're not going to let this go. We take this seriously. And I think what they're saying is, that is what the Obama campaign is saying to Hillary supporters is, if you will come with us, we won't let you down. The things that you were hoping to get from Hillary, we hear you, we take them seriously, and we won't forget about them. I think it's going to take more than just the convention to sell that to her supporters. But, these polls, they're sort of like asking everybody in August if they want to buy a snow shovel. They're not going to need it till November or December, so asking them right now is a little bit crazy. The fact that these people are still kind of raw from the last 6 months of the campaign, it doesn't mean very much about what they're going to do.
Okay, Astro, you will have the last word just for this half of the debate. We need to take a 12-minute break now for news and weather, but we will continue this discussion after that time. Our panelists return, so do stay with us. Welcome back to the debate on France 24, where we have been discussing the final stretch of the Democratic National Convention now underway in Denver, Colorado. And joining me again to continue that discussion here in the studio to my right, Crystal Fleming, a sociologist and member of Democrats Abroad France. Via satellite from Washington, Amy Kaufman, Senior Fellow from the Hudson Institute. On the phone from Denver, Colorado, David Mercer, a Democratic strategist from Mercer & Associates. And finally, via satellite from San Francisco, Astro Teller, CEO of Cerebellum Capital and a young leader for the French-American Foundation. Thanks all so much for joining us again. David Mercer, unfortunately, you were not with us in the first half of the program, so let me start with you. I'd just like to get your impressions of the convention so far. What have really been the high points for you?
I'll tell you, the starting off on Monday night, setting the historical precedent, going back essentially to 1980. I mean, you had the two major principles of Senator Kennedy and former President Jimmy Carter, who probably had the most contentious convention in our recent memory, going back to 80. And over the last couple of days and ending last night, with the Clinton speech, Biden, and then Obama out of nowhere showing up and bringing the unity of the party together and setting the stage for today, going into Invesco Field in front of 16,000 people, nearly tripling the audience, at least physically, from last night. But you went from a historical precedent. It was a demonstration that no matter what, Democrats will be united coming out of this convention and going into the general election and doing everything it takes for us to win and change the course that the country's been on over the last year set by the Bush administration.
Okay, and I mean, David, every party hopes to get the post-convention bounce. Do you think the Democrats will find that at following Barack Obama's speech in particular?
Absolutely. And one thing I want to point out, Andrea, is I think the real impact is happening in the local markets. Yes, there's the national coverage, the international coverage that you and others are providing to viewers. But I think if you pick up newspapers in St. Louis, Missouri, or in Des Moines, Iowa, on the front page you're going to see former Congressman Leach, who's endorsed Obama. You're going to find, articles or headliners of the senators and the governors that support the ticket. And it's really drilling down deep to have a local penetration in addition to what we're seeing on a national or international TV screen and coverage of the convention. And I think that plus what you're seeing on the coverage is going to provide for a lot of bounce, but also in local and state and regionally, you're going to see those bounces, and you would want to look at the state-to-state polls as well.
Okay. Amy, let me ask you, I mean, one of the downsides, I guess, of the coverage this time around has been the Republicans in their so-called war room, we've heard it labeled by the media, coming back. All of a sudden, Rudy Giuliani is out in Denver, coming back at every point he can to boost up John McCain in the face of whatever the Democrats have said in the course of the convention. How is that playing out in the United States, this Republican comeback over the course of this convention?
Well, you've had Mitt Romney out there, you've had Mike Huckabee out there, you've had Mike Murphy out there. Really, these guys are reminding everyone that, hey, it's not just one convention. We're coming up next week. And that's what's so great about this country, that there are always two sides to every issue, and everyone can always comment on the other side. So I'm sure that next week we're going to see a lot of Democrats out in Minnesota.
Okay. I mean, is that what you're expecting too, Crystal, that the Democrats will be out in force to do exactly what the Republicans have been doing every step of the way?
I wouldn't say exactly what they're going to do. We're going to have our own way of being present and pointing out that on the issues the Democrats have the advantage this year. I mean, listen, the Democrats welcome Republicans, independents, and everyone in between to our convention. 8 in 10 Americans are dissatisfied about the direction our country's going in. That includes a whole lot of Republicans. So I think that going into the Republican convention, you're going to have a Democratic presence to be reckoned with.
Okay. I'll tell you what, before we went to break, we'd actually started talking about some of the key speakers at the convention. We looked at Michelle Obama, then we went to Hillary Clinton. Let's talk a little bit about Bill Clinton and the speech he gave. We had a soundbite at the top whereby he arguably gave the best endorsement he could of Barack Obama by actually comparing him directly to himself when he was the nominee in 1992 and went on to win the presidency. Astro Teller, we'll start with you. What did you make of Bill Clinton's speech at the convention? How much of a boost was that for Obama?
I think in the end, he managed to prevent it from being a problem. I don't think it's going to turn out to be huge for Obama in the long run. But Bill Clinton gave a really world-class speech, and he said very clearly that he believes that Obama can be a great president and that he, I think, sincerely would rather see Obama be president than John McCain. People will take that away, and it will, at the very least, not hurt Obama. I don't think we're going to see some sort of tidal wave of additional support towards Obama. That's just not the way things are set up.
Okay, Amy, did you at least find Bill Clinton convincing?
I think that President Clinton was so beaten up himself during this primary. There is so much negativity towards him and his comments that I think this was his chance to finally say, hey, I was there first, I did this first, and to remind people of all the good things he had done by comparing himself. I think he was there in his speech trying to save himself and his own reputation. And I think the speech was more about Bill Clinton than it really was about Barack Obama.
Okay, David Mercer, let's get your thoughts on that.
To add, we have to remember that Bill Clinton is the only living Democrat that, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was able to repeat in a re-election of a Democratic president. And I think that however many millions of viewers tuned in to hear Bill Clinton's speech, there was one person that he was communicating to. And he was saying to Barack Obama, look, I've done this twice. You know that we're going to do everything that we can to get you elected, and let's hold hands and get through this for November. And he was getting the best advice from the one and only other Democrat that, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, knows how to win. And that's what we came out of. And I can tell you, being in the hall yesterday and through last night and into this morning, there is no doubt about this party having every resource and the leadership embraced to win this in November. But Bill Clinton was talking directly to Barack Obama, and we all had the privilege and the opportunity to hear what would have been behind closed doors and how we're going to win together.
Okay, Crystal.
I just wanted to say, I think Bill Clinton did three really important things. First, he said, I was a commander-in-chief. I know Barack Obama's ready, and he's the man for the job. Secondly, he really made this case. Yes, he talked about his own administration and the accomplishments that he had, but he showed the contrast in what happened when the Republicans controlled the government. And you saw in his speech last night, he talked about the fact that wages are down, that we're losing jobs, that the price of gas and food is skyrocketing, and that our image abroad has deteriorated because of the Republican policies and the Bush-Cheney years that we've had. So I think that he did that. And third, he also sort of put aside this silly argument that Barack Obama is not going to be able to be president because he's not ready. He's too young. They said the same thing about me.
Right.
So I think those are the three important things he did in his speech.
Okay, let's take a look at Joe Biden now. I mean, this was the first major forum for him to present himself as the vice presidential candidate. So I'll start with Amy. Is it going to help the Democratic Party? Was this a good show?
If Joe Biden stays on point the way he did last night, he's going to hit a home run every time. The problem with Joe Biden is that nobody ever knows which Joe Biden is going to show up. And the fact that he was able to stay on point, not go off, not make it about Joe Biden was really an accomplishment for him. It was a fabulous, fabulous home run performance by a vice president.
Okay.
Vice presidential candidate. Vice presidential candidate.
Right. Astro, go ahead.
Yeah, I think he did a remarkably good job. And the thing that I was most excited about is everyone, probably the Republicans as much as the Democrats, were sort of itching for a fight. They were hoping that someone had thrown red meat into Joe Biden's cage and that he would come out sort of swinging like a berserker at John McCain. And for him to have done it elegantly and from the high ground, to have made no bones about the fact that he doesn't think that McCain is the right person to be president, but that he started, like Hillary did, with a strong personal endorsement about McCain, I think sets a really important tone, and it helped his whole speech have this much more homey, genuine, and listenable quality instead of him sounding like he was ranting because he was supposed to.
Right. David Mercer.
Yes.
Go ahead. Your thoughts on Biden's performance?
Well, I think it helped Hillary Clinton out in a huge way and lifted some of the burden that's been placed on her, as if she is the only one that can speak for the traditional working middle class Democratic voter. And what we saw with Joe Biden is that we are rich in leadership with those that can speak to the traditional Democrats. And I think, again, it's not just Hillary reaching out, but it's Joe Biden's and others in our party that are going to be reaching out all across the country to traditional Democrats, bringing them together with the independents, the new voters, the young voters that Barack has brought to the table. And again, that's going to take us all over the finish line.
Okay. Crystal, quickly.
Yeah, I think that what he did in his speech last night was sort of complement all of this this hope that we have in the Democratic Party with some real specifics about what Barack Obama is going to do to bring change. He got specific about the fact that Barack Obama wants to cut taxes for 95% of Americans, that he wants affordable health care coverage that's going to save the average American family $2,500 a year. So he got down to the nitty-gritty in a way that Barack Obama is going to have to do consistently between now and November.
Between now and November. And what about tonight? I mean, how is Barack Obama going to have to present himself before this crowd of over 75,000 people expected? Starting now, people want to hear some specifics, don't they?
Yeah, and I think you're going to hear them. I mean, this is the time where he's making the case not just to the Democrats, who I think at this point we can say are on his side overwhelmingly. This is going to be the beginning of the real general campaign. And you're going to see him speaking and reaching out to independents and to Republicans. And I think something that Astro said earlier is right, that Barack Obama has run this campaign and run this convention in a way that's kept Democrats on message. We're not vilifying Republicans. We're not vilifying anyone who's not in our party. We're trying to attract people to see why Barack Obama has a better plan for America.
Amy, let me get your thoughts on that as well. I mean, you know, the conventions don't have to be so much about substance. They're kind of like, you know, pep rallies for the party. But at this point, you know, as Crystal testified to as well, people are expecting Barack Obama to put some real substance into this speech tonight. How do you think he'll deliver?
I think tonight is a big risk. He's doing it in a stadium, and I think that's going to alienate a lot of the seniors that are there and possibly a lot of the blue collars that are there. This is not going to be about substance. This is going to be a rock concert, basically, and it's falling into everything that John McCain has said about him being a media personality instead of being someone of substance. I think it was a very big risk to really pick up the youth vote, but he at the same time might be alienating other people whose support he needs. So we're going to have to wait and see how it turns out, but I really think in the long run it might not have been the best venue. Okay,
Astro.
Yeah, I agree with Amy that is a non-trivial risk. When you look at the sort of point-by-point issues on which McCain is ahead and Obama's ahead, there's only one, which is a real problem for Obama. The only one where he isn't actually ahead, or there's almost none in which he's even on, is the issue of whether he can be a great commander-in-chief. So people want to hear specifics, but they're already giving him the credit on these other issues. And so the thing he's going to have to do in the midst of this rock concert scenario which he's created, I think for some good and powerful reasons, is he's going to have to make them feel like when he's by himself behind the desk in the Oval Office, that he's going to make the right decisions, the hard decisions, that he can be sort of firm and tough on their behalf. And I think that's pretty hard to do in a rock concert scenario, but that's what he needs to do tonight.
Okay, I'll tell you what, we're down to our very last minute, so I apologize to the three of you. I want to get Amy's thoughts on this very last question. Having seen the convention thus far and perhaps what you expect Barack Obama to deliver tonight, what do the Republicans need to do now going into their convention next week?
Announce their vice president tomorrow, and that's what John McCain is going to do. He's hoping to steal that thunder by making an announcement. It's going to be a big surprise announcement. It's not going to be the way that Senator Obama did it, someone that everyone knew, the media, that he was vetting 3 people. This is going to be a complete surprise to everyone, and I think it's really going to get a lot of attention.
Okay. Amy Kaufman, you will have the final word for this edition of the debate. I'd like to thank all 4 of our panelists so much for joining us, and our viewers for tuning in as well. Then that is all for tonight. Another edition then on Monday. Do join us then. Bonsoir.